Hello, it's Tuesday, October 31st, 2017, and you're watching Life Talk. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's Halloween,
It is today.
and are you haunting any houses, Renee? I know you do that on the side as a
Right,
sideline.
right. That's
haunt
often
houses.
what I do.
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't know how many kids will be out today. It's raining, and it's supposed to rain into the evening
Well, it's
hours.
probably
So,
raining all over the United States, but yeah, it's raining.
well, here in Texas,
Right,
yeah.
it's raining in
Here.
North Texas, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just started raining a few minutes ago, but anyway, we'll wait and see.
Yep.
Listen, some things have happened here. They happen all the time, but sometimes they just seem to bunch up. That reinforce the argument that I've always made. We're in a cultural civil war in this country, and it is literally a civil war for the future of this country. And what kind of nation we're going to be. I already believe that we live in a post-Christian America. I believed that for many years. And I started studying this issue back even when I was in high school, even because we used to talk about, as I've talked to you before about, I remember hearing talk about Europe being a post-Christian Europe at that time, and that we were still a Christian country. All the earmarks that people use to describe a post-Christian Europe now exist here.
Oh, yeah.
And I firmly believe we live in a post-Christian America. And we're in a cultural civil war that is going to create a situation where my daughter and your children, who are even younger than she is, are not going to have the opportunities to live in the same world that we lived in. This country, we're in a danger of, if you and I were to come back 75 years from now, if this country still exists at that point, which I'm not totally sure that it will be, but if it does, it will be a totally different country than what we see now, because it's a totally different country than what it was 75 years ago.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're trying to erase history as we speak right now, removing statues and taking away Columbus Day, the holiday here. And I mean, there's just a lot going on.
It's just
on top of the things that we're going to talk about here in a moment.
Well, first off, let's talk about this man, Frank Stevens, who testified in Congress over a bill to prohibit abortions for Down syndrome babies, which I understand the reason for it. It's obviously has no practical impact even if you pass it, because if a woman has a Down syndrome baby and wants an abortion, she'll just, if it's illegal to abort a Down syndrome baby, she'll just say, I want it for another reason.
Oh, yeah, the health of a mother.
Or no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact is, excuse me, it's been a good opportunity to get a pro-life message out in front of the American people. And this man, Frank Stevens, has Down syndrome. And he made some pretty telling remarks there. And recently, we've covered the stories like in Iceland and Denmark and some other countries, South Korea,
that are completely doing away with abortion. I mean, with Down syndrome children.
They're bragging about it. They're saying we're eradicating Down syndrome.
Right.
Well, yeah, by killing the people with it. Well, there's not a disease on earth you can't cure if you do that. We can cure AIDS tomorrow. We can cure cancer, diabetes, whatever. Just line up all the people who have these problems.
And take them out.
And execute them.
Right.
And the disease goes away.
Yeah, this is definitely the eugenics movement.
Yes.
AKA Margaret Sanger or Hitler or you name it.
You name them. And that's what this man talked about. He said, this is eugenics, what you're talking about doing. But he made and he called it the final solution, kind of like Hitler called getting rid of the Jews in Germany the final solution. And he's saying, you're using the final solution against us, basically. But he was very eloquent, and he talked about all the things that he's accomplished with his life.
A ton, more than just
the average person.
The average person, yes, yeah. He's a pretty sharp, and Down syndrome. There's different levels of it, and you know, obviously he's at the higher level, and he's very well spoken. Yeah, so his story is incredible.
It is, and you know, he's basically standing in front of these pro-aborts down there and saying, what you're saying to me is I have no right to even be here. That's what you're saying.
That's right.
And he said this is eugenics, and that's what it is.
Unfortunately.
Of course, the problem is the moral defectives that are in our legislatures that are pro-abortion they don't care if it's eugenics. That's what their goal is anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. They wanted to remove the carbon footprint here.
Oh yeah, it's
Let's take out whoever we can.
it's obscene what they're it's political pornography is what it is. Anyway, speaking of political pornography, in Canada, which they have a lot of it in Canada, they passed legislation allowing what's called medical assistance in dying, MAID, MAID. And, of course, the people opposed to it warned what the ramifications of it would be, which they were then told, you're nutty, that'll never happen, and now they're happening.
Oh, yeah.
And people being, they've had an example of somebody being coerced into medical assisted suicide when she was not. All she had was a bladder disease, apparently a bladder problem.
Well, Mark, it's just like that lady that we told her, she wasn't on as a guest, but we told her story of her husband going to a facility because she was exhausted, and she thinks that they euthanized him there because he was supposed to have lived, a longer time.
And he was dead within 48 hours.
Real fast after he had gone to the facility.
And that was here in the United States.
Yeah.
And they're talking about people being pressured into accepting euthanasia, and there'll be economic reasons for that.
Definitely.
There'll be people encouraging people to die to keep them from using up inheritances that they might get once the person dies.
Yeah.
And we've seen that right here in Denton, Texas. I've told you a story about a friend of mine that was a physician that encountered that situation with one of his own patients.
Yeah.
Anyway, this stuff is going on and on. But here's another one that's just amazing. There were 1,050 pediatricians, physicians, who participated in a survey. 118 of them said that over the course of the past year, they had made, which is this medical assistance in dying related discussions, with a total of 419 patients. That's almost half of their patients. I mean, almost half of these people said that they had a discussion about this with one of their patients.
Yep.
Most of the minors in question were children under 13.
Yes.
And when it came to explicit results, it said 45 said they had dealt with a total of 91 parents, almost half of which were asking about medical assisted suicide for infants of theirs that were less than a year old.
Well, this goes back
That's
to...
almost 50.
This goes back to Richard Darwin and his belief that you can euthanize or kill a child even after birth, up to a year or even 2 years. This is exactly what that is.
And you got lots of people. Peter Singer, you got that lady.
I meant Peter Singer, sorry about
Darwin
that.
is not who you're talking about. Yeah.
No.
There's a lot of these guys out there. Some of them have written books calling for this.
Yep.
So, but just think about this. Some of these guys, 1,050 doctors is not a large survey, just 1,050 people. 50 of them had discussions about assisting the death of a child under a year old.
Yeah. Yeah, just for reasons that maybe a doctor can fix or.
But wait a minute, what difference, what do the reasons make?
There is no difference.
Right.
There's none, because you're playing God, and you're not supposed to do stuff like that.
Like Peter Singer that you're talking about, he has said in one of his books that he wrote with another so-called ethicist, bioethicist, a woman, they're saying that parents ought to be given this option for, I've heard year, I've heard 28 months, I've heard all kinds of different, but for a certain length of time after birth. Even if the only reason they're wanting to do it is because they haven't, quote unquote, bonded with the child, or they've discovered that they might not be really cut out to be parents. So you're going to take your child into the doctor's office, and I guess have them put down like you'd put down a dog,
an animal.
Yeah, a dog that's sick or something.
Right.
This is where we're coming to, and this is part of this cultural civil war that we're engaged in, and we better win this thing. I'm telling you, it's mind-boggling. Here's another story that doesn't really do with the cultural civil war, but in a way it does. We always talk about the radical pro-abortion, pro-death agenda of the American media. A New York Times reporter has now revealed, her name's Linda Greenhouse. She was a reporter for the New York Times, and she admitted, which is, of course, the largest newspaper in the country, most radically pro-abortion newspaper in the country. She admitted that she was a donor to Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
While she's working for the New York Times.
It doesn't surprise me.
Me neither.
And there's millions and millions of other reporters out there that are probably doing the same. They are very biased. They are very pro-abortion, and that's their agenda.
And do we think we can get an honest story? That's why I don't deal with them when they call and they say, "Well, why won't you answer my questions?"
All right.
I don't trust you. I always tell them the same thing. Well, as you know.
We won't say what you say.
Right. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't trust them.
Right.
They're not trustworthy people.
Right.
And you can laugh about Donald Trump all you want to in his relationship with the media, but Donald Trump has hit the nail on the head.
He knows.
I wrote a book in the 1980s in which I said this very thing. Journalism in America is dead. I wrote that in the 1980s. There is no such thing as journalism anymore. There's left-wing politics that uses world events and the manipulation of those world events
To
further that
those
agenda.
events. Yeah.
And it was also reported that this New York Times reporter participated in the 1989 pro-choice march in Washington while she was working at the newspaper. So yeah, we're going to get a fair shake from her, right?
Oh no. Yeah.
And by the way, she was reporting she was participating in this march, this pro-abortion march, not only while she was a reporter at the New York Times, but she was a Supreme Court reporter.
Yeah.
And
that
so
makes it worse.
they said she reported well over 100 times. She was involved in more than 100 stories that mentioned Planned Parenthood while she was giving money to Planned Parenthood.
I'm surprised she just now came out and shared what she had done, because there's other reporters out there and journalists or whatever, and they don't care. They are very proud of
what they do.
Where they stand on this topic.
I remember several years ago, there was a big pro-abortion march in D.C., and you know how they always have the banner across the street, and then a whole bunch of the dignitaries stand right behind the banner and hold it up and lead the march, right? One of the people leading the march was Linda Ellerby. Linda Ellerby was a reporter for CNN. That night, she was the one that they assigned to report on that march. So she is literally on the air reporting on the march, and the footage, the B-roll of the march, shows her holding the banner as she's walking down the street.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like somebody from Channel 8, I believe, that here in Texas. Yeah.
Don't get me started on Channel 8.
Yeah, I know. I'm blank with her name right now.
Well,
But
Gloria Campos is
yes,
one.
and Del Hansen
And
plays his part.
the what's her name, Janet St. James. Gloria Campos was a reporter on Channel 8 here in Dallas. She's reporting on the Planned Parenthood fundraiser that she was the master of ceremonies at. Why would Channel 8? They're the ABC affiliate here in Dallas.
Right.
Why would they even allow her to do this? But why would they allow her to be the MC of this thing, the master of ceremonies at this event, pro-abortion Planned Parenthood fundraiser, and then her report on it that night?
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yes, it is.
At that same one, this other reporter, Janet St. James, was given the media award, their award for Planned Parenthood for their top-rated media person. And this is at Channel 8, and these people are, they have no shame whatsoever.
Right.
But anyway, but let's talk about, for a minute here, talking about this cultural civil war. We all are aware, we've talked before about this situation where you have this illegal girl from Mexico, a minor child from Mexico here in the United States illegally. She wants to have an abortion. The abortion industry rallies around her and saying that she has a constitutional right to have an abortion, and the state of Texas was wrong to try to prohibit it, which they did, and that not only did she have a constitutional right to an abortion, she had a constitutional right to a taxpayer-funded abortion.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
So the state of Texas, the Attorney General's office here, holds this up, doesn't let it go. So they file a suit in a federal court, and it goes into a federal court. Now, from what I can understand of this situation, there was an agreement that if this one court was going to rule on it early in the morning a couple of days ago, and the agreement between the pro-aborts and the Attorney General was that, yes, if you win that appeal, you won't rush out and have an abortion until we can appeal to the next court and have them rule, right?
Right.
That was the agreement. The second that the lower court ruled that she could have the abortion, they rushed it out and had it done.
Yes.
To keep the state of Texas
Right.
from having the opportunity to appeal it.
Yeah.
And if, the people around the country need to be aware that I know that they tested this in Texas because Texas has this history being so pro-life. We are one of the most pro-life states in the country. We have a very pro-life legislature, pro-life governor, pro-life attorney general. So I'm sure they particularly chose this girl to test this with. But people around the country need to realize this is coming to your state too. You now have, this is mind-boggling if you think about it. Mind-boggling. Can you even imagine that the founding fathers of this country would have said that the Constitution protects a person, a minor child, from another country that's not a citizen, that is here illegally, protects her constitutional right to have an abortion? They'd have said, well, what constitutional right are you talking about to have an abortion? It's not in the Constitution. They would have been aghast if they had seen what has happened here.
That's how far our country's
Has
deteriorated, yeah.
And it continues to deteriorate every day. But the point I want to make here to people is, if you think this isn't coming to your state, if you think this is going to be limited to Texas, believe me, you're dreaming. If they can do this in Texas, they can do it in any state in this country. And that's what they're building up to. And so now what we have done is we have sent a message to minor children in other parts of the world. If you can just get into the United States, we'll get you a free abortion. Now, what's to keep, let's say a child is in Mexico, and she's not planning on leaving Mexico. She's going to stay there, right? She's not coming to the United States to live here permanently. But all she got to do is get across the border.
Right, to have that safe abortion, as
Safe
they call
and legal,
it.
taxpayer funded, which the abortion industry lied about years ago and said they had no interest in taxpayer funding abortion. They're not going to try to force people who believe abortion is murder to pay for it. We'll never do that. They were lying through their teeth then. I used to call them on it all the time. They were lying through their teeth then. They're lying through their teeth now.
Right.
And so if you have a girl that, let's say, lives on a town that borders the United States, Nuevo Laredo, right across the border from Laredo, Texas, she can come to the United States legally. She can just come in and say, I'm here for the day. Whatever. People cross the border all day long without any intent of staying. Once she gets here, the new standard is that she's entitled to a free abortion paid for by you and me.
That's right.
If
that's not infuriating, I don't know what is.
It's just, it's absolutely unbelievable that this is where we've come to.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, before we leave, I got to talk about this as well. We're kind of getting on our soapbox today and getting all this stuff out of the way so we can go on about our business. I know you were in Virginia for a while. Did you ever go to Christ Church?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Yeah. Christ Church is an old church that's been there since before the American Revolution. George Washington went to Christ Church. A lot of the founding fathers and a lot of presidents and a lot of dignitaries over the years have gone to Christ Church. At Christ Church, they have dignitaries like, let's say, George Washington. His family had a pew, a whole, basically kind of like a booth at a baseball game or something, and that's where his family sat when they went to that church, and that was their home church. And when you went there, when you went into Christ Church, and I've been there a couple of times just visiting, and you go in and they show you the pew where George Washington's family sat. And there's a little plaque there that commemorates George Washington, our first president, sat here in this pew at services. They've now been forced to take that plaque down.
Of course.
because it offends some people.
Mm-hmm.
Because George Washington was a slave owner,
Mm-hmm.
and so now where he just merely sat in a church
Mm-hmm.
is offensive, and so they've taken that plaque away. And
That's sickening.
it just and let's make sure people understand something. There is an assault on Christianity right now. This Christianity is under attack in America. And when I say Christianity, I don't mean all religions. Particularly Christianity has been attacked right now. If you went into a church and let's say that a famous Muslim had sat in a place and they had a plaque there commemorating that, and you tried to say, that offends me, I want that plaque taken down.
It would never have been removed.
It would never happen, and you'd be lucky to be able to show your face in this country. You'd be very lucky if your house wasn't firebombed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, you hear all these people saying, oh, I think there's an attack on religion. No, there is not an attack on religion. There is an attack on Christianity, and we need to get that clear. There is a total distinction between an attack on religion and an attack on Christianity alone. All religions are not under attack. But here's my question. I'm deeply offended, for example, that there's a statue, a bust of Margaret Sanger at the Smithsonian, right?
And that's not going to be removed.
That's not going to be removed. And I could go there and I could raise a ruckus all day long.
Mm-hmm. They wouldn't care.
They wouldn't care. The only thing that would happen is I'd get arrested.
Yep.
I'd be hauled out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go all over this country and find plaques and statues and memorabilia dedicated to people that are totally 100% reprehensible individuals, totally reprehensible individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm offended by that, why doesn't my offense at that count as much as the person who's offended by a plaque there that commemorates George Washington having sat in this pew?
Yeah, I don't.
If you don't think there's an attack on Christianity, then you have to explain that to me.
Yeah.
And there is an attack on Christianity.
Yeah, that's sad.
And we've seen it over the last few years in some things like attacks on Christmas, where they're saying you cannot say Merry Christmas in a store, or city.
You can't even have a manger out at the courthouse.
A city can't set out a manger. But if it were any other religion, then if you opposed it, you'd be intolerant. But you can oppose anything that is done in the name of Christ, and you will never be accused of being intolerant. Never. You will be defended right up to the Supreme Court.
That's right.
And
that's where we need to fight harder.
This is like I said, I think we talk about this all the time, and I think people just need to understand. You need to get it through your head. We are in a cultural civil war. That's what abortion is about. That's what all of these issues are about. This is the continuation of a battle that began in the Garden of Eden, and that's what it is. These are just the latest manifestations of it.
Right.
And if you want America to survive, you better stand up and fight, because if you don't, we're going down. That's all there is to it. God gave us this nation, and if you look at it, this is the first and to this date only nation in the history of the world that in its founding document said that rights don't come from other men, they come from God. Men are here to protect those rights and to advance those rights, but the rights come from God. Other country, Canada is a good example of it. They say your rights in Canada, your rights come from the government. Their charter actually says that. The rights that you have as a Canadian citizen come from the government.
Well, I mean, that's why the United States was such a thriving
for so many years.
Nation, and,
Right.
and now it's going downhill really fast because we're taking God out of everything. Schools, prayer,
everything. And it's mind-boggling. But the thing about it is, I'm telling you, we better stand up and fight, because if we don't, we're going to lose this country.
Yeah.
We are losing it right before our very eyes right now. Better get up and fight. Anyway, you got anything?
No, just give us your show suggestions. We would appreciate it.
Right.
And if you do, you'll get a free mug.
Right.
Just I need your address, so send your address.
If you're still waiting on your free mug that Renee didn't send you before, let us know, and she'll get it out to you at some point.
I know you're not.
I think all the mugs are out now.
I think they are.
Right. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
All right. Till next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you Thursday.
See you then.